Check. 1 2 1 2. Hey everybody, how's it going? How you doing? Oh, yeah. So chat's talking about emotes. I guess I talked about emotes, and I'm not entirely sure what I want for future emotes, but I'll keep thinking about it. I'll keep brainstorming it. You're saying Marcello somehow. We'd need to figure out Marcello. Oh, thanks Stormgale. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for coming out, everybody. It's gonna be chill. So, for those of you who are a little confused about the streaming on Saturdays, we've been trying for a little bit now to do a bit more weekend stuff. Particularly, people want have been asking, like, okay, how about you play some games that you actually like, and that's a good plan. So the chill streams are mostly going to be mostly creative games. So we've done Factorio, we've done Dwarf Fortress. I suppose I could fire the Dwarf Fortress back up. I haven't. No, I did do a bunch more after we signed off. I wound up accidentally breaching into hell, but was able to seal it before before the screaming hordes overwhelmed us. But so yeah, so I'm thinking right now we might do a bit of Oxygen Not Included because they may have fixed this a while ago, but the current web drivers finally behave. Previously on macOS, if you had an NVIDIA card, then your duplicates, your characters, like the game would work just fine and it would run, but the characters were invisible. And that's a problem if you want to be able to actually play the game. Oh, hey Bomber Guy, hey Nix. Harry, if you're around and you're the hangout's just sitting there, and May too, if you want, I'll send you. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. Just gotta switch to the right window. That's not the right window. There's the right window. Okay. Things. There we go. Yeah, invisible mode's a little difficult. So I played for a while earlier today, and what else today? So I'm trying to actually get used to it. Since the last time I played, they've added a bunch of things. Attributes now matter, interests now matter. You can like assign people specific jobs, and there's some other yeah. So I think we're gonna Chaotic Space Hut. Chaotic Space Hut is a pretty good name for a colony. It's a pretty good name for a colony. So all right, let's just take Chaotic Space Hut and let's just go. I think I have a better sense. Okay, so if you're here you go. Here's the setup for people who haven't seen this before. So the game is made by Clay. It's you may be familiar with Don't Starve Together. So yeah. So it's gonna have a bit of a poopy sense of humor. Get used to fluids. And the setup is your crew has awoken stranded inside a distant asteroid. The funny thing is that the crew doesn't know what's going on, but if you, the player, it's pretty easy to figure out that there's a team of scientists back on Earth who have launched a clone printing machine to a distant asteroid in order to like mine it or do research or just whatever. And so you are printing clones of yourself inside this distant asteroid, and horrible things then happen to then likely happen to them. So all right, let's check out. We're gonna scope out our starting area. And all right, okay, already I'm not particularly fond of having all of this liquid above me, but so be it. We can deal with that. All right, we got food. Well, wait, no, we have one bristle blossom there, a muck root, some muck root, some meal wood, bristle blossom. So we're just gonna, okay, there's a bunch. There's a lot of food down there. The thing that I'm going to try this time is I'm going to try beelining towards... So, the game I was playing earlier, I just kind of kept starving my duplicants, and it was bad, and I couldn't figure out... Mouse cursor is missing. Mouse cursor's missing in the capture. Oh. How am I gonna fix that? Oh wait, I know how. Okay. All right, we're gonna fix that the junky way. The junky way. And there we go. We fixed it the junky way. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna try beelining towards jobs, cause what do? Yeah. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it. All right, let's start digging. Get to work, everybody. I'm not starving them on purpose. I'm just starving them by accident. There's a big difference between those. All right. We pretty much need to just go straight down to that. All right, that's vacuum. That's fine. Okay, so... Well, we need to go up, because that's where the water is. But we also need to go down, because that's where the food is. All right. Okay. Ladder. You know what? Screw it. Ladder down. Yeah, sure. There. Why not? It is what it is. Dig. Dig, you fools. Dig. Dig. We probably also need to be digging out like this way too. And we'll pre-queue that. And we'll also... We're gonna want a 3 high? No. Yeah, 3 high. Yeah. Though this, actually, it might not actually be too bad, this layout and direction, because if we go up with our sleeping quarters and stuff, we can put all of our, we'll put our oxygen generators kind of in, you know, this space, and the oxygen will go up, and then the carbon dioxide will fall as it does, and so we'll get the CO2 down to our farming level, which is where, because plants breathe it. Plants breathe the CO2, and that'll be good for them. And yeah. And this ladder well is not the best use of time to start necessarily. Okay, so the fluid system in the game, in particular, like the gaseous fluids don't mix, like they don't form solution, so you don't just have CO2, you know, you don't just have a volume of gas that has a relative ratio of oxygen and CO2, so much as you have, so like here's a unit, you can see it, this black smoke, here's a unit of CO2 that is, you know, in the volume, but does not form solution with the oxygen. And so that's just kind of their way of, like, it's a simplified model that tracks, you know, so that just to make it more gamish, it gamifies it. You know, I mean, it's not like strictly wrong in the sense that it's like, oh, well, you know, the relative behavior of CO2 versus oxygen, it's just that things that would normally happen over incredibly large vertical scales now happen over scales of human height. So yeah, like down near the floor, it's unbreathable quantities of carbon dioxide, and near the roof, it's like pure oxygen. Oh, crap. I just realized... Okay, wait. No, I'm going to cancel this layer to start. And... And actually, let's go ahead and breach this. Because this is oxygen down here, and we've got a couple oxlite here, so this will be... They'll be able to work longer, because now the oxygen's going to start. So you can see... So here we're looking at the oxygen overlay. So you can see that now the oxygen is trying to go up, and the carbon dioxide is trying to pass the oxygen, and they're kind of slowly exchanging past each other. But it also means now people don't need to like run all the way up here in order to breathe. So you can see, so it does have some mixing in that, like purple squares. So purple squares are you know, some mixture of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and red squares are pretty much just carbon dioxide, and, you know, teal squares are oxygen. Very breathable, breathable, barely breathable, unbreathable. There's the, yeah, there you go. So yes, when they're in unbreathable space, they hold their breath. And we'll actually cut them there. just because this is actually going to be a less important layer than getting some of these other things up and going. Lindsay is a narcoleptic. She just fell asleep on the ladder.
Oh my god, that's awful.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? She's just sitting there, sleeping and breathing, so she's turning oxygen into carbon dioxide and not accomplishing anything. It's the worst.
Sounds like me on a good day.
How you doing?
Good, yeah, good. I can hear myself, by the way.
You can hear yourself?
Yes.
Oh, I kind of understand why you can hear yourself. Wait.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey.
how's it going?
Pretty good.
So everybody, this is H Bomber Guy and Nick Spheres, aka Harry and May.
Hi.
Are human names acceptable, or would you rather go with our made-up online names?
I'd rather go with my real name
Okay.
than my fake made-up fantasy name.
Made-up fantasy name.
It's good to finally meet you.
Yeah. I guess we've only kind of like incidentally interacted online a bunch of times.
Yeah, a whole bunch of times. I messaged you about like camera stuff like a year ago.
Yeah. It was funny when I was like, oh, I'm gonna send Nick a message, and it was like, oh, we had already had a conversation, and hey, since this is my stream and I'm not hijacking your stream with camera stuff. We can just bore everyone to tears with camera stuff on Dan's stream, because that's what Dan does on his stream anyway.
Oh, can we please? That sounds amazing.
So NAB is next week. For what does it stand for? Something broadcasters. North American It's like the North American Broadcasters Convention or something like that. So for chat who doesn't know, so NAB is kind of the big, it's the big tech conference for all of the absurdly boring tech. It's not for, consumer facing stuff. You have the consumer electronics expo, CES, no, consumer whatever. There's the one that happens in January. That's where they actually show you all of the things that you're going to be able to afford to buy. And then NAB is for the things where it's Fuji will announce a new sports lens that starts at $125,000.
It's like PAX, but for expensive lenses.
Yeah. National Association of Broadcasters. So that's next week. So there's a whole bunch of all of the new stuff's coming out. So you get so Small HD announced their new monitors. One of which, the cheapest of which, their new entry model starts at $599 US.
Not bad though.
Not bad though. I mean,
not horrible, but I mean you can do better. But
yeah, I don't know. Small HD, unless I'm kind of the opinion that unless you're going for their super lightweight ones, or they're just incredibly high spec ones, I don't find their middle devices to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, a monitor, it's you can kind of, I mean, it depends on the specificity, I guess, of what you need it for, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think I've shot with a small HD monitor twice on shoots, and they're fine. I don't know.
Yeah, they're fine, but it's like they've never, I don't know, they've never blown me away with except like I guess what I kind of already said is like their super lightweight ones are actually really impressive, and their like really high spec ones are also pretty impressive. But like the in between stuff is just like really $1,500 for that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people who are like, "Hey, this is basically the small HD focus, but for like a quarter of the cost," and that kind of sells it for me on them not being great unless you absolutely need the things that those things do.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
especially with when it's like a lot of their, all of their mid-level ones end up uh, overlapping with like Atomos' stuff. So it's like those ones. It's like, all right, an Atomos is going to be as good of a monitor. It's as accurate as like a focus monitor, but it's also a recorder.
Right. Yeah, I use exclusively Atomos pretty much. I mean, the ones that I've owned in my life. Everything else, it's like rent out. If people already need it or already really really want it, like I don't understand why people like aren't on board with the Atomos thing. Just because I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of wonderful. I mean, maybe that'll change. Maybe it's not necessary anymore, but I don't know. I'm a pretty big supporter of that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I think that shooting to a codec that's good is really nice, and onto a hard drive as well, so you don't have to futz with SD cards that may or may not work. Like, there are tons of DSLRs where recording limit and the way that they sometimes just decide that some kinds of SD card aren't good enough and they'll stop halfway through. It's a pain, and to not have to deal with that and work in a codec that doesn't completely destroy your computer. Like I've shot stuff on a GH5 and Premiere for a while just wouldn't edit it at all. Like it was just broken. So
It still won't in some codecs, which is
Yeah.
like really messed up.
jeez. Yeah, so it's fantastic that you can just record out of that.
I've-
in a
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad yesterday when so I was posting about the new Blackmagic camera, the new Pocket, at least sort of like what we know so far, and someone responded like all it said was just get a GH5, and I like had to check, so it's like scroll, it's like all right, what's their follower count? It's like am I going to be like is this an awful idea? Like, it's like 34 followers. It's like, okay, I will make myself the butt of this joke then, because I don't have kind things to say about the GH series. Though I'm particularly biased against it. Like I have a sour experience with it in that Blood Mania, which many of my longtime viewers are familiar with, and if you saw my anyone who saw my disaster artist vlog where I talked about the soggy hummus and tomato sandwich, that was
Yes.
Blood Mania.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah, that was Blood Mania. Available now on Amazon Instant
Oh my god.
if you want to go watch it. When I finally watched it, like I did finally get around to watching it, and it was too depressing. I couldn't even drag it on Twitter. I was like, this has gone past funny and is now just sad. Also, like it was just so bad.
I'm really
Alright.
sorry to hear that. I take it you're not talking about the Blood Mania that was released in 1970.
No. I mean, it was
Oh, no.
it was Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Yeah. So what happened to the GH5 anyway?
The GH5. So it was actually a GH4 that we were shooting on at the time. But it was just a miserable experience. Like trying to push that camera so far beyond what it was meant to do really cast all of its myriad flaws, especially from a like filmmaking perspective, into a harsh light. So whenever people are just like, oh, well, just get a GH5 instead, I'm like, no, I already know that the GH5 is not up for the task that I would want to put it up to. You know, the user interface is terrible. The HUD is ugly. The codec is not very good. To put it lightly, like, it solves a couple problems within its price point, particularly like, okay, if you do need like absurdly high frame rates,
Yeah, that's true.
then it's like, okay, it is probably your most cost effective way to access, 240 frames for, less than $7,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right. But that's a very specific use case.
Yeah. So I owned a GH4 for about 6 months before I sold it, and so I had to buy a Metabones for it, which ended up okay because I used the Metabones a lot, but so it didn't end up as cheap as like everybody said, because you got to get all these attachments to make it work, and then once I was using it, like, the lighting situation is really kind of awful on that camera. Like, lighting for that camera is terrible, and I don't think it's a dynamic range problem. You don't
like purple. You don't like a nice magenta cast to skin tones. That's
no Christ. I mean, we spent so much time coloring that out.
God,
so bad.
Yeah, like I also owned a GH4 for a while, and I have one and then sold it, and I've also used a GH5, and there was one shot I ever got with it where I was like, that looks strikingly acceptable, and it was like a very low depth of field shot of some soy milk dripping off of a shirt on a washing line into a puddle, and I was like, this looks like a nice image, and that was it. Like, everything else I could take or leave. Like, it's just fine.
It's great for abstraction images, but when you're recording people, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, like, you can take photographs with it and they'll look okay.
Yeah,
it's a decent stills camera.
Yeah.
Also, that vlog profile is terrible.
Oh my god. Here's the thing. My pride and joy is like an ancient C100, like Mark 1 thing. And like 2 days ago, I was out in the woods and I handed it to someone who barely knows how to use a camera. Like, they're a programmer, and we shot for like an hour, hanging out on a crappy tiny small HD monitor, like a DP4, and I put a section of it where I talk about the Batsuit's nipples up on the Slack, and Lindsay said, "Hey, this looks really good. Why don't you shoot this on?" It's like that, and like the GH4 is like basically a decade older or something ridiculous, and it's like rubbish. The GH4 is like a decade old, newer than the. Well,
right.
Not that much, but it's a lot newer, and it's like it's shocking how bad a lot of like the prosumer cameras were for a long time, and no one noticed, and it's so hard to go back now.
Well, it was.
I feel like a snob, but
well, I mean, in some of it, like in a historical view of camera development and like accessible cinema cameras over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, okay, like you look at the 5D Mark II and how it basically changed the rules of the game, but you go back and use it now, and it's like, oh, this thing in video mode, like, it doesn't have good dynamic range. The rolling shutter is, in retrospect, like, abysmal. It's kind of like right at the edge of actually being like acceptable image quality, and like you do need to like be careful with it, and it's because the hitch is that it's like, oh well, it was the only thing that did what it did when it came out. Like, it was the only full frame video solution available that wasn't an RE Genesis.
Yeah, like a full frame video camera now would be game changing. In fact, like I almost went down the FS5 Metabones route to simulate that, but that's like a lot of money for YouTube videos. So
right,
yeah, it's just a no. But like that would be massive, and like The shocking thing is that it was such a game changer now, and Canon have been unable to even replicate that. Like the Mark IV crops in, so there's no point, and it records it like a motion JPEG.
Well, okay, so Canon has a weird relationship to their whole product line and a weird internal development method that no one really actually like gets because it doesn't make any sense. Where they're so conservative about poaching their own product lines.
Yeah.
Like they're absurdly worried about poaching their own product lines and putting something out that that stomps on the toes of, you know, a different dedicated machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I kind of understand that to some degree or another, but it means that there's a lot of potential market that they just don't even access because people are like, hey, we would really like a camera with like the following features, you know, sort of in this price range. You know, like, hey, if you put out a 6D, 5D costed video camera that maybe didn't have all of the XLR ports and everything, but had a full frame sensor, you know, if you just kind of took the 5D and stuck it into something without it, like put a better heatsink on that sucker and took off the record limiter, like you'd sell tons of them for, you know, $3,000 a pop. Even if the rolling shutter was just as bad, and Canon's like, well, no, that's what the C500 is for, and you're like, the C500 is $15,000.
C500 is $700 million, and yeah,
People just pay it, no big deal.
Yeah, with the C200, they made an incredibly expensive camera that basically invalidates most of the rest of the C line. And I asked the guy when we were there last year, like, is there going to be like a C100 Mark III that's like a little bit better? Because, you know, Mark II's pretty old by these standards, and they're like, basically no.
Like, yeah, the C200 has essentially just the C200 has at this point more or less replaced both the C100 and 300.
Yeah.
So that means they're going to come out with a C400 that'll bridge the gap between the... I don't know. Well, and now they've got the 700 out as well, which is a straight competitor to the Alexa. I mean, it's the size of an Alexa, so...
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. People have been commenting about my my camera addiction and when I'm going to relapse. And the answer is I didn't think Blackmagic would announce a new camera NAB, so this changes the game. But
I don't even think that's a relapse though. That's like solving a lot of the problems. Like, because the reason that we have a camera addiction is because none of them like satisfy our needs, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
I need to say I called it, like that I knew this was going to happen.
You did call it.
So, May, I don't know if you had seen this little thing. So back the first week of February, my Blackmagic Micro broke.
Yes, I did see that, yeah.
And I knew it. I knew it in my bones that it's like, okay, 2 months before NAB, 2 years after the Micro was announced, 4 years after the Pocket, they're going to do it. They're going to 4 years after the Micro, also they have completely depreciated the original cinema camera line. They're going to do it. They're either going to have a like straight up like Pocket V2, Micro V2, or they're going to have a new thing that's essentially going to be a merger of those two in the $2,000 price point, because right now they don't have a camera in the $2,000 price point and anymore. And I could just feel it, and then sure enough, I had to replace my Micro, and 6 weeks later, Pocket V2.
I didn't believe you at
That
all.
sucks so bad.
The age of, like they announced all that other stuff, like the broadcast and a bunch of things for it. I thought, well, they wouldn't announce and release this now if they were going to do stuff at NAB, but.
Well, and this
So
the thing that I knew. So they have for a while now been separating their broadcast product announcements from their cinema product announcements. So
Right.
the one where they did the Ursa broadcast back in was that late February? Late February when they announced the Ursa broadcast. There's sort of two things with that. Is one, that was like the broadcast press conference, and two, the Ursa broadcast is just a variant. So it was the same thing with the Ursa Mini Pro. Why they announced that one outside of NAB was because it was ultimately just a variant on the on an existing camera, rather than being a like what they internally consider to be a new or product line. Whereas this one, they are calling it the Pocket 4K, but you look at the thing, like, it's substantially larger than the Pocket. It's no longer really a pocket camera because it is the size of a full-size DSLR. So it's like, all right, well, but Pocket was always kind of disingenuous unless you put a pancake lens on it. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. And also, like, you ran a little cable out to a larger battery.
Yeah. So there's kind of so they're calling it the Pocket V2, but really, I think, like, just looking at it, it's taking the old cinema camera line and the Pocket and meeting in between the two. So it's
which
not
is awesome because
yeah.
like I shoot on the 2.5K, like that's my pride and joy. And I love that camera. If they made that smaller and not as awful in like its shape and its capabilities, that would be pretty good.
Every couple of months I have another moment where it's like I should just pick up a used 2.5K. It was such a good camera. And then I have to remind myself that it's like they still didn't solve the problems with it. Like they didn't put out a version 2 with like a removable battery and non TS audio ports. Like I don't know what's up with those line ports.
Yeah, I don't either.
No one really does. But anyway, yeah, so I was arguing like what I really wanted was I just wanted them to take the existing micro body and just slap the 2.5K sensor in it, and I would have been happy with it. It's like, just give me a 2.5K micro.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
I do hope that we see the Pocket and Micro have reached a level where they're pretty cheap for what they are still. But I'd love to see a version of those that like is on the level of the more recent stuff, because they are now the oldest thing.
Yeah. So I posted sort of my wish list for the new camera and kind of what I want, what I would like to see, and I suspect that it is going to have, like, particularly software stuff, like anything software side that already exists in like the Ursa Mini Pro. I think you can expect to see, because they're just going to like take that UI and move it over. So I might be disappointed in that, but I'm really, really hoping we see stuff like off-speed frame rates, like that don't change your time base, so you can still spit out a 24 FPS 60p, like 60 frames per second file, but shot at a 24 FPS frame base, rather than needing to like alter it afterwards and stuff like that. And then if they do that, then you can get arbitrary frame rates. So you can do 48 if you want to, say, do a video about HFR, like in as it relates to The Hobbit and Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, and you could shoot the whole thing at 48 FPS as part of the gimmick of talking about high frame rate.
I feel like somebody's working on something like that, or would work on something like that. Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
That is that the impression you're getting, that someone's working on that? I
don't know why someone would. I mean, you can't even get those movies in 48, can you?
I know, that's sort of the bizarre thing about it, is that I want to do this whole thing talking about it, but the only one you can get in HFR is Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. It is the only HFR movie to have received a commercial release, and the HFR version is only available on the 4K Blu-ray.
That's
it's
awful. Like, who's
That's
buying
sad.
this?
like no one, no
Who
one's
would
buying
ever?
it. Like that's oh right, I made
It's
this
so
little
bizarre.
cutout to actually put beds in, and then didn't put any beds in it.
Yeah. God, the time and logistics that went
I
into
can move
making
those
that
later.
stereoscopic 48 film, and it's just, oh, I feel so bad.
I
for
really,
all of that.
really wish I had gotten to see the 120 like the 120 frame rate version of it. Like just out of
Oh.
I don't know, curiosity at this point. Like, what was it like?
I never got to see it, and I'm like a defender of the Hobbit films. Well, to an extent, not to the extent
Oh.
normal, but whatever.
Well, the Hobbit films, like, so yeah, I saw them at 48, or I saw the first one at 48. I didn't see the third one until Netflix, because no one saw the third one until Netflix.
I saw it in the dollar movies. Back when dollar movies were a
I
thing.
saw them all in the theater, and I saw them all at the not ridiculous frames per second. And partway through the first film, a giant fan broke in the theater and started making a very loud noise, and they apologized and gave us tickets to something else.
Perfect.
So in my head, there's a section of the first Hobbit film where the soundtrack is, and it didn't change all that much. God. Did my internet-
Sound design in those movies. Anyway. Maximal. We'll call it Maximal.
My internet just broke. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like you do wonder if, under the exceeding pressure and just the garbage that was happening, Mr. Jackson made the film about all that meddling. Like it does seem to be a film about executive meddling.
I mean,
This fun Hobbit journey happening. Meanwhile, cut to the council of Miramax, and people are arguing about what they're going to do about the Hobbit adventure.
it's the kind of thing that reads almost like, in that situation, how could he have made a movie about anything other than that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you're, yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna go mute that. Everyone who's like, you're dinging, Dan.
Yeah.
You're dinging. I'll go fix that right now.
Okay.
We can keep talking, but my attention is gonna go to stop the dinging.
I mean,
Okay.
all films are, in some degree, a documentary about the production of that film.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, twirling a non-existent mustache. But you can see that a lot with Lord of the Rings, where a lot of it is very, look at this thing that we did. Is a huge part of its production. Like there's even things where there's a trademark Peter Jackson thing of putting outtakes in the film. There's a famous thing where Aragorn knocks a knife aside when it's thrown his way with his sword, and that was an accident. Like it was thrown towards him much closer than it should have been, and he actually reacted in real time and knocked it away. And they kept it in because it was so real. They also kept in him breaking the bones of his feet.
Oh God.
When he kicked the helmet and broke his foot.
Yeah. But yeah, like, so for me the Hobbit film works in context of what it is as a story about, like, I had the beautiful childhood upbringing of reading The Hobbit as a kid and being touched by it and it being magical, and then one day picking up a large omnibus in Borders called Lord of the Rings and reading the back and it going, hey, remember that ring? It turned out to be the most important thing in the entire universe, and they have to do this. And I was like, wait, what? It was like this beautiful childhood story died as part of this mythos, and there was something very satisfying about the Hobbit films ending up being a series of films about the beautiful story of the Hobbit being eaten by the Lord of the Rings franchise, because that's how I felt. That was me. So
I just realized that all of that, like, hey, so I'm gonna just beeline for these two technologies. I did them in the wrong order, so we might still end up having an awful food bottleneck problem. It'll be fun. Everybody might die,
Oh,
and then we'll just have to print more.
oh no. Yeah.
It's okay. We can make more of them.
Okay, good. It's. I mean, I have a theory because we know from notes that with Justice League, Snyder like continued working for a while after the loss of his child, like decided that that's what he wanted to do, and then executive meddling got worse and worse, and eventually he basically quit. And I think it's basically 100% certain that he handpicked Whedon as his successor, and I have the feeling that he did that on purpose to destroy the film. Not like that's not something you can ever say like, ha, that makes the film good. But no, but I feel like I see his films as very anti-Whedon-esque in their appeal and their tone, and I like quite a bit of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. And I feel like with Justice League, the people paying to make it wanted a Joss Whedon movie. They wanted one of those. They were sick of this weird thing that Snyder was doing, and eventually Snyder got sick of it and said, fuck it, we'll put Joss Whedon on, it'll be terrible, and everyone will see.
Everyone will see, and then it just wound up being a different kind of terrible. I mean, he wasn't wrong. It was bad, but
I have no qualms with the idea that his cut would have also been bad. I would love to have seen it, but it's one of those many things.
Yeah, like it's one of those hard things because the only thing we have is basically rumor and innuendo that comes from executives at Warner Brothers who hate Snyder because his movies were not like okay. Here's part of the problem is that the reason why Warner Brothers hates Snyder is because he didn't deliver the very specific thing that they wanted. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he made a bunch of like really kind of weird bad movies. It's that they didn't make all the money and they didn't overtake Marvel.
Yeah.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with the actual quality of the films and everything to do with their place in the market. And so it's like, all right, people, these rumors and reports that it's like the Snyder cut of Justice League was like 4 hours long and was basically unwatchable. It's like, okay, one, I kind of believe it, but two, those are also coming from people with a decidedly different slant on what constitutes unwatchable.
Right.
Because these are the people who are
the story that Batman vs Superman is most heavily cribbing from, which is The Dark Knight Returns, is a 2-film long film in its own adaptation. Like there's precedent for it being a 4-hour long story. IMO.
Jobs board. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, his past work, like the trajectory of Snyder's specific involvement in that franchise, his Justice League was probably it was probably more it was almost certainly more unified, like artistically unified, but that doesn't mean good.
Yeah. The relationship between the director and the production is always the most odd thing. Like, there have been many instances where the director has too much control and no one stops them, and it's clear that the crew is a huge portion of it, and then there's, like, all productions are in some way fettered by executive meddling, and it's a shame that I won't get to see the film that Snyder wanted to make because I would have liked that.
It would have been fascinating.
Everyone else would hate that.
Even
But
if it would have been terrible. Like
Yeah.
I would have almost preferred it just because then I would have like definitive closure on all this nonsense.
Yeah, it annoys me that the sheer production behind these giant films makes it almost impossible for them to be the kind of things that I feel that they would have been best at being. It's like Suicide Squad at its core could be a really interesting anti-Avengers story. Like it's set up very much as a more honest take on what the Avengers Initiative would be in real life. You know, Shield are this clandestine government organization that is bad, and these people, you know, there's the obvious, you know, even has like the anti-Nick Fury character. Like that is an interesting take on what the superhero genre is, and then the film is garbage, and it's sad that you can see that potential going away, and then he made Bright.
It was particularly sort of, I don't know, personally weird that I had that whole online, like that Twitter interaction with him, like
God, yeah,
2 weeks before Bright came out. It's just he's like I want this bro to edit all my future movies. I'm like, sure man, give me a call. Then Bright comes out and I'm like, do I go back and delete that tweet? Like what do I do? Do I rescind
that offer?
Do I rescind that offer?
God, the worst part of that is like I've read the original script by Alan Smithy, and it's like not good, but it's so much better. Like it's paced. It has it goes from the beginning to the end. It doesn't cut to like earlier in the film, ages before, a part that we missed for no reason, way towards the end. It's
weird and derivative and not very good, but
it's terrible. It's not very good at all. But Aya just rewrote it to be worse.
Added it. It's like, hey, Alan Smithy, you know what this script needs? Like, I like it. I dig it. You know what's really missing? Racism.
And
it's like, you mean being about racism? No. I don't mean being about racism. It's just missing racism.
What if the orcs were black people? I've got it. I figured it out. And then Will Smith comes up and it's like, oh, I love this new version of the script, but what if I said fairy lives don't matter today? And Aya said, and Aya, of course, because he's an intelligent and reasonable man, said, no, that's a horrible thing. Maybe we'll shoot it, but we won't put it in the cut. That's terrible. And then he slipped.
And accidentally pressed the W key when editing, and it ended up as a take in the edit, and he didn't know.
Yeah, there are famous stories of I forget what movie it was. Someone cut together like a bunch of fun outtakes featuring Will Smith in a film. It might have been Bad Boys 2, and like they kept trying to give him the tape, and he kept like going, "Oh, thanks," and then just leaving it where he was. Like he just kept putting it down and leaving it whenever they tried to give him the tape. And I have the feeling that they made an alternate cut of Bright that had the fairy lives don't matter today thing, and accidentally shipped that one.
Oops! It wound up in our pipeline and went to DI, and now it's the movie.
Yeah.
It's just so shocking that, like, I don't even see the relevance of, like, why that take would be included, or why that bit of, and I assume it was probably a bit of improv, like, because most of the movie feels that way. Like, I don't know. When I was watching it, yeah, I was watching the movie pretty much entirely baffled by the decisions, but, like, that was one of the weirder things I've seen in a movie in a while.
Most of the time, like I always feel most of the time whenever I run into a decision, like a line in particular where I'm like, okay, why, like that's just confusing at some level. I'm like, okay, that must have seemed incredibly funny on set. Like everybody's there, you know, everybody's jacked up because it's, you know, week 13 and you just want this to be over and everyone's got the giggles, and that day for just, it's like you start joking and it just escalates and it's like, all right, okay, oh man, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen, man. You know, when
they end up including it.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's 2 a.m. and you and your buddies. It's 2 a.m. You're in high school. You and your buddies are playing Primal Rage, and suddenly Primal Rage is the funniest video game ever made, and you're laughing yourselves to tears. And then the next morning, you're like, wait, what?
Right.
Why? Except in this case, it wound up making it into the finished movie.
Right. And then
Then-
culture found it and was like, what?
What?
Why? Yeah. Well, and you know, so much of the movie feels that way. There's that one scene that's the most pointless scene where I think they're trying to establish their like relationship kind of early on, and they're sitting in the squad car and they're driving, and there's just this whole sequence where they're just driving and talking, and they're talking about sex and they're talking about all this stuff, and like there's no purpose to any of it. Like it just feels like it's just like it's got to be there to establish the relationship, but none of it feels tonally anything. It just kind of feels like it's just happening.
Yeah.
And like the assumption has to be that they were obsessed with the fact that he was in like orc makeup and they were having this mundane conversation and they thought that was funny. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I mean, also like that conversation in specific is an artifact of a previous draft.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it used to be like previously, like in a previous draft, Will Smith's character, whose name I can't remember because I can't remember literally any character's name in that except Jacoby. His character was like estranged from his wife, and so like their whole banter was revolved around. It's like, yeah, man, you got to get laid because you haven't had sex in like ages because your wife left you, and so yeah, so and it just then they changed the other part but left that part.
Yeah, it leaves the audience questioning what the scene is actually about, and it could be two things. It could be one is like it's an actual analysis of Smith's character and like, hey, you know, he's estranged from his wife. Only he's not. All we see of his wife is them getting along fine. So that's pointless. And the only other way you can read the scene then is that Orc Man is trying to make small talk, but incredibly poorly and awkwardly. And that doesn't seem like, why would you have that? Like, I like that characterization of that character, but why did you need this here? You know? It's odd.
Yeah, and
I want to know all about that, all about why Orc Cop is who they are and how they ended up there. I don't want to watch any of Bright.
yeah,
Bright feels like a very successful film series, and like 3 films down the line, they're like, hey, let's make like a side movie about 2 cops who were in the background of a couple of scenes and see what they were up to, and they really half-assed it with like a quarter of the main cast of the main series, but it's the main movie. Like,
yeah,
it's like I want to see things from the world of Bright that seemed way more interesting than what Bright was, and that's not a good film to make.
no, that's kind of that thing I was saying about La La Land earlier. I was like, the most interesting story is the one they didn't tell.
Yeah, like they shouldn't have made La La Land.
Yeah, there was something else there they could have. But also, you know, I think that it speaks to some sort of like strange untruth, like that this is what has happened. You know, it's like it feels like that kind of thing would be kind of sublime, like visceral for our current like racial politics. Like there's something that they could have really said there if they were going to do that, and it just isn't that. Like it just isn't that. I don't understand how it isn't that, but it isn't. And
yeah, and like the way they supplement it, where sometimes they stand in for racism that actually exists, and sometimes they are like an extra thing that we're more racist against. It doesn't make any sense, and like,
hey,
is the
we're
universe supposed to
racist
make
against
sense,
black
or
people,
is it
but
supposed
we're
to be a
also
joke?
extra racist against orcs.
Yeah, like Shrek exists in that universe now. They have acknowledged Shrek. Where do you go from there?
Well, it's like, is Shrek a racist caricature in that world? Do you suppose?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Are
You
there
have
are
to be,
there
right?
are there orc film critics who are very upset about its like treatment of ogres? Because
Yeah.
they recognize that ogres are very obviously a stand-in for.
Well,
Orcs.
but centaurs and dragons exist, so why wouldn't ogres?
God, Shrek is a really interesting. Like compared to Bright, Shrek is a really interesting film about racial politics.
It's about interracial dating, is it not?
Among other
Shrek
things,
is
it's also about basically an entire neighborhood gets forced to like evicted.
Oh yeah, for the state or whatever, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Monarchy. I mean monarchy, but you get what I'm saying. Um, Man, Shrek is a weird movie. I feel like if it wasn't a meme, somebody would make a really like meaty analysis of Shrek in our modern times.
Yeah,
I
I
think you
did
still
that
could.
almost. I almost wrote that.
Oh my
Especially
God.
like I'd made it through almost all of it with like my general points of like Shrek is someone who takes race relations at face value and it like all affects his emotional life and then he learns to accept like he basically stops being a race traitor. And like my mind exploded when Immigrant Song starts playing during a pivotal moment in Shrek 3. Or was it 4? I forget now at this point. No, it's 3. And then I never saw 4 though. I was like, if I go any deeper into this, I will make it, and that will be it for me. So, no. But
My God.
Shrek is about how bad it was working at Disney.
That's what I've heard on a
Apparently.
like a meta narrative way. I mean, that's what was going on. It's that every film is a documentary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Shrek goes to Disneyland in the first movie, and they censor the word ass.
Oh God, that's right. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
But that's
I
also
forgot that
another
happened.
that's also another example of like something where it's like, okay, it is about Disneyland, or it's about Disney, and like, it's like, oh well, Disney's actually like not a perfect place to work, but it's also the politics of the people making it also need to be included, where it's like, okay, well, the people spearheading it, Katzenberg, it's like they're kind of one, assholes themselves, and two, not exactly not exactly great to work with in their own right, and they also might be a little bit biased.
Yeah. Did you see Jenny Nicholson's video about Escape from Tomorrow?
Yes.
I haven't. Oh, is it good?
You should watch it. It's very good. It speaks to a significant truth about this kind of idea of like, this kind of like bias hatred towards
What
something.
if Disneyland? What if wholesome thing actually evil?
It's also the most straightforward thing to do. I was really touched when I first saw the poster with the hand, the Mickey Mouse hand with blood, and just the tagline "Bad things happen everywhere." Like that to me was a chilling poster at the time, but mostly because I took the tagline more seriously, like all the time, like everywhere, like all the time, like it was
Perpetually.
I think the biggest sin of that movie is just, I mean, I hate that concept of like sin, but I think that the movie fails to really like articulate much of anything. Like, and it does so in a way that's like, I'd call it pseudo weird. I don't know if you guys saw Wrinkle in Time, the new Wrinkle in Time.
I haven't. I've been pretty
Okay,
busy.
it's really, really weird. Like weird in a Jupiter ascending kind of way. Like where there are not movies that are this weird
Yes. Okay.
that
All
are
right.
made. And
I'm persuaded.
okay, so like everybody hates it, and everybody thinks that Ava DuVernay is like really bad now, which is stupid, because she's amazing. But the thing is, it's this kind of weird that's really daring, because you can't not be aware of it. Like there's this brief thing. It's just there's a part in the movie where her character is like way taller than everybody else, and there's a wide shot where everybody's running across like a field, and Oprah is like Godzilla, like coming across a field. It's weird in a way that movies aren't. And so you're like,
Oh.
you're watching it, and you're just like, so many people would assume this is like was some kind of mistake, but it speaks to a kind of daring kind of absurdity that actually says something and speaks to fantasy in a way that so like returning to Escape from Tomorrow, it's absurd, and it's got this kind of fantasy-esque quality, but it's simultaneously not weird enough and doesn't speak to that fantasy quality quite as much as it really could. It doesn't, in a visceral way, it doesn't mean anything, and on a textual way, it doesn't mean anything. So it's like, I don't know, but you should see A Wrinkle in Time. It's really good.
Clown
it's
Unionist
so
says A
weird.
Wrinkle in Time, the book is amazing, and I agree. I love the book.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I it's just I can't really say much because it's such a visceral thing to actually see it, but
Yeah.
it's I'll say this much. It's been really, really telling reading and seeing people's reactions to it. Like the way that they're talking about it is just really telling to like this kind of film illiteracy that I feel like is kind of rampant, and like not giving things a chance or feeling alienated by things. I think that's natural to feel alienated by something that's just so not normal to the way that people are making stuff. But also, I don't know. I think it's a disappointment because I think we need more stuff like that. That's
Well,
like the true progressive
Yeah.
stuff.
And I think personally, like, I would be disappointed if A Wrinkle in Time weren't weird. Because,
Yeah.
like, the book is very weird. Like, it is a really strange story in a lot of ways. And, like, intentionally, deliberately so, it confronts it confronts the like flaws in perception. It's a children's book that is about the fallibility of perception and scope and framing the universe, like the fundamental terms that we think about our experiences in is the bread and butter of that book. Like, it's explaining very strange, difficult to grasp philosophy to children very effectively.
Right.
And is entirely about like, hey kids, the thing, like, just because you have seen something or experienced something or felt something doesn't make it universally true, but also doesn't make it invalid. That perception itself is a malleable, tricky, difficult subject.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just also the value of just personal experience.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't skimp on the idea of like the value of personal experience, which is good. Which I think, I don't know. I think that kids movies need more of that kind of thing because that's like values that are really inherent to like, a meaningful life and really, empathetically understanding people and connecting with people and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think in that sense, it's a shame that I don't know if it's going to make its mark quite as much as I wish it would, but I'm happy it exists. I really dug it, and the critical reaction has been kind of transparent. That's pretty much as much as I've got on it, but you should see it. Yeah.
So I'm finally getting around to water.
Oh,
It's stupid sand.
I'm just browsing the Channel Awesome website and looking at the decreasing lists of shows and members.
It's oh man. So that's just one of those bizarre situations where, like, okay, everybody involved, or I shouldn't say everybody involved, for a while now, they have transparently had little to no interest in producers who are not in Chicago, like, or just interacting with creatives who are not in Chicago and are not part of their immediate, like, that they can't have to the studio. Like, that's kind of really what they want, but they're still trying to maintain the perception that they are this, like, online curation of content producers that they then do nothing to help or assist or anything, and so it rapidly just turns into, well, there's another place that I post my videos, and maybe some people see them there. And yeah, Mashad's very bad at his job.
Oh wow, Kikassia is 45% off. I can finally watch Kikassia for $6.
Oh no. If you're going to watch any of them, I would highly recommend making it to Boldly Flee. It is 4 hours, 3.5. it is 3.5 hours that you will never get back, and you will want them back. But the act of wanting them back is itself a thing that will change you, and teach,
Wow.
and will be a experience that will teach you something about the human experience.
Now, what is this exactly?
This is the kind of thing like that you see. This is what makes Wrinkle in Time so interesting. Is it's an experience that you won't have before, but having it changes you. And is important and relevant. The image I've just linked in the chat, by the way, is the 2 discs edition of Boldly Flee. I just want to point out that I
Oh
just
my
think it's
God,
really
oh.
funny that they've got the same image of Dog Walker on all 3 in the same pose. No, 4. He's on the side of the case,
He's
pulling
very
that
proud.
face.
He's very proud of that very smug face that he makes.
I just love like looking at him, and in one he's red on the left side, and then on the next disc he's blue on the right side.
I've always found it strange that they like put out stuff like this. Like,
It's just the way it looks is so good.
just inherently. So, okay, is this available anywhere that's not on disc?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Wait,
Sorry.
no. All right, everybody standing around doing nothing. I guess I should. Okay, so one of the challenges in this game, in Oxygen Not Included, is that you do need to worry about like air density. So, like, if we look up here, we have 1,700, 1,600 grams of air. So we've got good air pressure up here, but then down here, 900, 600, 700, 800. So we're doing okay-ish. But if we just dig out too much too fast, then our air pressure will plummet, and everything will become unbreathable because it'll basically just be a vacuum. And people can't breathe a vacuum. No, so the overlay, unless they've added one, the overlay just shows you oxygen. So it shows you it really just shows you breathability, but breathability and density aren't the same thing. So you can have a room, so like down here, this one's unbreathable because this is basically just pure carbon dioxide over here. So we have like 920 grams of carbon dioxide. But over here, it's unbreathable because it's a vacuum and there's literally nothing there to breathe in the first place. So I really wish that they would add a pressure overlay, like, add it, I don't know, maybe to the like ventilation overlay, or something, maybe just have another one, because, air density, like pressure and breathability aren't the same thing, even if they're related.
So I found To Boldly Flee on YouTube.
I found the IMDb page for Linkara, and the one photo is of him, Spoonie, and Doug as Blood Rain, and the way it's cropped, it looks like the one picture of Linkara there is of Doug as Blood Rain, and it's very confusing and upsetting. Deserves better. Oh my god.
We have Thimbleweed. I don't know what Thimbleweed does. I've never... Dustcap. I haven't seen these plants before. Or maybe I have, and I just don't know what they do. I'm thinking
Oh my god.
this vacuum, I could like just drill down and turn, like I could build a reservoir here and basically prep this as a water reservoir. You know, clear it out, have it not full of stuff and junk, and then just have a nice big water reservoir here. And then I have that ready when I convert these planters to irrigated planters, or to like irrigated stuff, pipe.
I've just seen the Linkara image with Doug.
It's very sad.
It I feel
Oh,
like
God.
this will haunt me now.
It's just the optics of you go to Linkara's page and the one picture associated with him is Doug Walker as Blood Rain. It's just
It's
Wait.
I think there's a metaphor in there.
yes. Oh god.
Oh, how does To Boldly Flee compare to Cremaster? Well,
Oh god.
it's, I mean,
It's shorter.
okay, it's shorter. It is, like, it's shorter than Cremaster. It's more watchable than Cremaster? I don't know. Like, that's really gonna, like, yeah, that's gonna come down a lot to sort of your personal thresholds for, like, sympathetic shame. If you are the kind of person who like can't watch cringe comedy because it hurts you too much to watch other people make an ass of themselves, then yeah, I don't know if you're gonna get through To Boldly Flee.
TBH, that's why like long ago I just like stopped watching Doug altogether. Like I used to watch him just out of like a fascinated curiosity, but it got to some weird point where I just felt like I couldn't anymore. It hurt me when I did it. I don't know.
I might watch one of the many commentary tracks for it that exists. Often produced by people who worked on it.
Oh no.
They're amazing. Well, so yeah. So there's a whole. Okay, this comes down to the way that Mashad like screwed everyone over and would just be a general like rat bastard. So they would bring everybody out to these anniversary video shoots, and then round everybody up into a room and explain to them that it's like, okay, we get all of your crossovers. Like anything that you shoot while you're here, we're going to take instead and put on our channel so that we get the money so that we can recoup the cost of flying you out here to make this movie.
Fucking.
It's like Mashad does not understand that when you make a movie, you then have a movie.
Yeah.
To sell. And the whole, the whole calculus of making a movie is that you will get a profit out the other side because you now have a movie to sell. And so after some pushback, they were able to be, they said, it's like, okay, well, I guess like commentary tracks or whatever, you can keep the revenue from that. So like everybody made one and they're all just like dragging on it because it was just this absurdly awful experience. And Doug was completely out of the loop about it. Like he at the end of shooting To Boldly Flee, he was like, well, that was a great time. I'm really glad everybody came out for this great send-off of my character, and they had to have a private meeting with him to be like, no, man, everybody is angry. Like, they hated this week. People are upset. He's like, what? Why? We made this great movie. It's like, well, because you think that their characters are, like, disposable and no longer necessary, and that because you want to retire Nostalgia Critic, that means that they are now 100% irrelevant in their jobs that exist on your website that they're not sure exists anymore, and you didn't tell them. Like,
Good
for
Lord.
for a huge number of the people who were there for To Boldly Flee, because it's like, okay, so you think about, like, you look at Doug's stuff and the way that he makes things, and just kind of think it like this is not a person who sends out coherent, singular, finished scripts. So everybody got used to the scripts being like dumb and bad and getting changed a million times, and so nobody read them. You know, like, this is now the fourth one that they had made, and so it's just like, okay, we're like, would you bother reading it? Most people don't even bother reading the scripts for like professional films that they work on unless they're in the entire thing. So many people working on it didn't realize that the Nostalgia Critic was dying at the end until they were on set shooting it, because management didn't bother looping in the rest of the company into what was happening.
And then
I
the
need to read
Nostalgia
this
Critic
doc.
came back. So yeah,
I need to read this doc.
you really do.
I-
The sharpest line in it when I was reading it was, they never asked him to do the green screen stuff, and it's not in the film. That's the
Oh man, yeah,
that's
the stuff with
fantastic
Phelan.
punchline to this most shocking story. God.
A specific commentary track. Allison, Phelan, and who's the third person on it? Basically, look up Obscurus Lupa's version or Phelis's version. So they're the one that they do together is great.
I feel so
guess-
like, I mean, so they both got demonetized today, right? Or was that yesterday?
Did they get no? So
Full screen killed them.
Phelan, like, full screen, is like, yeah, we're terminating our relationship with you on Monday, which, I mean, I'm of two minds about, because it's like, okay, well, you know, it always kind of sucks when, you know, people pull that kind of crap on you with short notice when, you know, these companies blow. But at the same time, I'm also of the opinion that multi-channel networks have a very limited marginal utility in the current state of things, and most of them suck and are awful anyway, and aren't, like, just flat out are not worth their marginal utility.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, that blows, but good also.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really gonna miss them as much as that sucks.
Yeah.
I remember watching some of Spoonie's commentary on the movie, and it being weirdly positive, despite him, like, leaving right after making it, right?
Oh dang, what's the timeline on
I don't think he
that?
finished it. I don't think he finished the commentary, though. He did it in like 10-minute segments and stopped after like 9, which is like a tenth of the film. So
Yeah, like, I seem to remember his commentary track is largely just about himself. Like, and how and how everyone was in love with his acting.
doesn't he play like 3 characters in it?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 characters. 5 characters, 6, 10, 20, everyone who isn't Doug. I'm pretty sure
I
Phelan is played
I
by...
play 3 characters in the thing I'm making right now, and you know.
Well, the difference is, like, you're a genius.
I did just cut like half the script out like a few days ago. I was like, what if I took out all the dialogue for these scenes?
Okay, I need to figure something out here. I have Stinky here, and Stinky is my research assistant, but Devin, being a rat bastard, is hogging the research station. So go to the priorities toggle in the top right. And oh, there we go. This is basically just this is Dwarf Therapist. I know this. Okay, so I want to find Stinky and be like, yo, research, high priority, and everybody else low priority, super high priority. Okay, and then Lindsay, farmhand. Super high. Wait, what did that change to? Very high priority. I don't get the difference between 2 triangles and a wrench. So this one says farm errands are very high priority for Lindsay. As a farmhand, Lindsay considers farm errands to be a very high priority. What? What? What's the difference between those? I don't know. Let's leave it on wrench.
Nice.
So people were asking about my my tenure on Channel Awesome and why I don't really talk about it a whole lot. And the big reason is that it was only like 6 months. So there's not a whole lot to really say, but I mean, in that 6 months, I did experience, in microcosm, basically everything, like all of the mismanagement that people talk about. Like management didn't talk to me or any of the other new hires, like at all, ever. They just, it was like, oh, hey, we accepted you in the recruiting drive. Cool. Here's how you access our back end. Cool. And even that came late. Like there was a few people in who got recruited who, like, for a couple weeks were like, so how do I post my videos? Because they never got login credentials.
Jeez. Wow. So who's still on Channel Awesome at this point? Just Brad?
Brad. Angry Joe is, but I don't think Angry Joe knows that he is.
Oh. Oh my.
Like, I think he's just never actually left formally. And because of that, I would be 0% surprised to learn that, like, Mike Michaud personally adds all of Joe's videos to the back end. Like, I sincerely doubt that Joe goes in and, like, schedules his videos in their scheduler and jumps through all of the, like, garbage hoops for getting them on the site, when I can guarantee that Channel Awesome as a vector nets him, maybe 1% of his views.
Wow. Jeez.
All right, we need the bigger research station now.
According to Phoenix Set, there are 18 producers left, and 7 of them are Doug Walker in different outfits. So.
Okay. All right, we gotta
You're gonna kill me.
deconstruct the beds and move the beds. We're gonna move the beds somewhere better, so that they're not like. I'm trying to avoid. It's okay. So in these games, in these kinds of like building construction games, it's like, okay, you can put stuff down in a temporary place and then just move it later. So you can build a temporary bedroom, but then what always ends up happening is your temporary bedroom becomes a permanent bedroom, so you now have a permanent bedroom in a like stupid bad spot because you never got around to moving it. So like people are sleeping like in the hallway.
Yep. I know that. I know that feel. All of Factorio just becoming an ad hoc placeholder for itself. God.
Okay, let's just go this way. And yeah, we'll build this. This will become bedroom over here-ish.
It's interesting that like Channel Awesome or Tig was like at some point in history a really useful vector for finding people. Like I found a ton of people that were like influential to me, and a ton of people who influential to me in the opposite direction. Oh, I suppose Funny Games was meant to be artistic, huh? But like it's you know, I guess it sucked all the time, and it's a shame that there isn't the place that thing was 6 years ago or however long it was at this point when it was that thing for me. And I wonder what that will be for people of, you know, the next generation of, you know, teenagers on the internet. And it's probably going to be the YouTube algorithm, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, I think the optimistic view is that it's like Twitter or something like that, you know? Like, I don't know.
It's friends of friends curating each other's tastes based on sharing things and hoping for the best.
Which is like, I mean, that's 90% of how I've gotten anywhere, pretty much. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's like, that's a really big thing.
Yeah.
One of the actually during the New Zealand trip, this was a thing that we were talking about in the car because we were listening to the Ready Player One podcast, 376 pages we'll never get back with Mike Nelson, and we had a big discussion in the car about one of the things that an accidental truth that Ernest Cline hit on but didn't realize that he had kind of gotten right, which was that it's like, okay, in the world of the Oasis, like there's this whole digression at one point about how everybody's like curating their TV channels, you know, that like they basically just run, you know, Twitch streams playing old 80s television shows and whatnot, and it's this little just aside, and it's actually accidentally a cogent point because it's like, okay, in a world where all previous media is infinitely accessible, then curation becomes the important thing because it is simply too much for people to process.
Yeah. Like, how do I make sure that all the children of the future have seen the Silver Surfer animated series, and not seen, you know, Big Bad Beetleborgs or whatever crap people watch now? You know, how do you ensure maximum childhood growth? And because, you know, thanks to YouTube, you can watch anything, but
do you actually want to watch anything? Like, should you watch just anything on YouTube? And it's like, I don't know about that.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like 90% of the stuff that's curated to me by YouTube is like bullshit, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean,
the algorithm doesn't provide anything.
So it makes human curation, like maybe accidentally that is the salient point there, that it's like that human curation becomes the important thing, that's what people start to crave, and that becomes the thing that people find valuable.
I think maybe that's also reflected in the shift towards reviewers and people talking about media and analysis in the first place, because the first thing anyone feels a need for in this massive sort of log flume of media that the internet is a need for someone to tell them what it means and what's happening in it and what's going on.
Yeah.
What should I
Like
watch?
as someone growing up, like in a you know, I was quite a young teenager when that guy with the glasses was a thing. Like it was really helpful that there was someone out there who'd seen Monkey Bone and Equilibrium and could tell me about it. Like that was like useful in a way almost. You know? It was garbage and it filled my head with lies, but it was like that need was real.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and like just the illusion of shared experience.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
There are very few shared experiences now outside of things like, hey, I saw Player One and it sucked. Ready Player One.
Yeah. Well, that's like, isn't that the kind of fucked up thing now, right? Is like that's the shared experience now. Is like whenever something's really awful, that's our shared experience.
That is
Oh,
that is kind of depressing.
And there's like this manufactured idea of like what is awful, so that people can connect via that way. Like I feel like there's a lot of channels devoted to just shitting on everything, with the intent of manufacturing shared experience in that way. I don't know. That just comes across like that to me, but I'm fairly used to seeing it now, and I think it's disconcerting.
Oh God, am I being called out?
No,
This is-
definitely not. The thing is, like, it's the value of the thing, right? It's like when Nostalgia Critic says something sucks, you know, okay, like what
Why?
the fuck does he know? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, but when Nostalgia Critic screams and flails his toy gun around and the screen flashes white and I hear the same gunshot sound effect .mp3 played 12 times in quick succession, I briefly feel like surely there must be a reason why this genius has been driven so low, and maybe Monkey Bone is bad, and that, you know, if we all work together, we can brought together by a shared fake hatred for Monkey Bone, starring Brendan Fraser. I don't know why I thought of that one first. And
Like I would have gone to Bart's Nightmare, but
yeah, Bart's Nightmare is the other big one. I rewatched that like a day ago. The Reciprocity.
I rewatched the Reciprocity of it. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and it was just
I'm nostalgic for the time before I'd seen that. Actually, that's a joke they use. I can't use that one.
Oh right, yeah, that is one of their
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah. God.
I-
That guy with the glasses.com is just at the bottom the whole time.
Yeah, that was a thing. Okay, so that's one of those weird artifacts of, you know, early internet video, is that it's like, yeah, you kind of had to like put your watermark all over everything because people would just take it and post it everywhere, and
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
really have the same way of assuring viewers that you like that a given channel was in fact yours, and also if people are going to steal your stuff. So actually, you didn't have an assurance that people you if you were popular, people were going to steal your stuff. They were going to turn it into gifts. They were going to turn it into whatever. They were going to post it everywhere. And now the savvy thing about putting their watermark all over it, despite the fact that it makes everything look like hideous and ugly, is one of the if you just want to be successful on the internet and make money, then make things that people are going to want to steal, and then just use Content ID to your advantage.
Yeah.
There's also the thing about stealing is that is like, thanks to the like collapse of Blip and the disappearance of a lot of creators or their like continued disinterest, I'm fairly certain there are still some videos made by Spoonie that only exist in the form of Russian
bootlegs,
subtitled
yeah,
versions.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
those Russians, they did us a service because the Ultima retrospective is pretty good. I like that.
I think he saved all of the Ultima retrospect just because that was like that started like right before Blip died.
Yeah.
So I think official versions of the entire of that.
Oh, they're all up on YouTube. Oh, I might be thinking of SWAT 4 or something then, but
Yeah, the original SWAT 4 LP is only available in Russian subtitled bootlegs.
God, wow, it's bootlegs. This is it.
Yeah. Bootlegs of internet YouTube content, like stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
The Ultima thing really hit a really interesting place where it made a lot of facile criticisms and then arrived at why it mattered in a really good way. Like there's
Yeah.
some like I think a lot of early criticism of media was sort of hashing out what analysis was, how you criticize things, and how to pace and tone and format a video essay of that nature. And a lot of the early groundwork was done. And I feel like the thing that made me sit down and take the most notes was the way that last Ultima video Spoony made was paced, like the way it.
Yeah, one of the things, like, I still like a lot of Noah's output, because he did have that. When he was on, he had a talent for taking sort of Doug's shtick of like just blind fury, but then bringing it to an actual point.
Yeah, and how do you pace it in the form of a video in the first place and all of that?
Yeah.
I just like he talks very frankly in the last Ultima thing just about like how a lot of this matters because it was a bonding experience with his brother, and that stuff's really important. Like that's people don't get like real about why something matters to them in that way, and it like he manages to work the viewer to a point where they're amenable to that, and that's really clever. And it's I don't know. I think that and like the Plinkett reviews for On the Floors are very good at slowly working, like they're paced properly, and that's not something that you see in a lot of like, especially still on YouTube. It's like, here's a 40-minute rant, here's my vlog about this movie, and it just doesn't satisfy. People will watch it though, but people will watch it because it's unsatisfying, because they can watch 100 of them and never get enough because they don't get the thing they need.
Yeah, and also like, I think the process of making them, like there are people that pump out like a 40-minute video every couple weeks, and you're like, how? But the answer is because there is no content.
Well,
I
mean, a lot of times, like if I think the few exceptions are like Noah, Caldwell Gervais, who is just like inhuman. I don't know how he manages to produce the volume that he does at the density of it. Like I am constantly in awe of his output.
So good. Yeah, he's so good. I live in awe. Like he doesn't know how to fade audio properly.
No,
but he knows.
But
that's because every single moment he could have learned that, he spent being good at everything else. And God, I love him.
How do I? Come on, stop. I really wish that they would stop just making lice loaf and leaving it on the ground, because I'm worried about Hatch. There's this little Hatch here walking back and forth, and I'm really worried about this Hatch just being like, okay, I'm gonna just like eat all your food. I've expanded it, but like they're still just lazy assholes who are like, we're gonna make food and then store it on the floor.
Do you not have a refrigerator?
I have a bread box. I don't have a refrigerator. Fridges are expensive. Fridges are like really expensive. Actually, I don't know. Okay, where is refrigeration on here now? Meal prep. Let's see. We got mess table, electric grill, agriculture farm station, hydroponic farm, refrigerator. So it's like 2 technology tiers up from where I am. But I am gonna get. Actually, I don't need farm tiles. My regular farms are fine for the moment. I need. I've got pressure management, so that's giving me gas valves and airlocks, and I need filtration. Yes. I don't need automation. I don't have enough coal to care about coal generator. I also don't need enough. I don't need that much electricity right now. So, all right.
It's kind of an upsetting experience thinking about other creators' backlogs, because I can think of like when I think of Nick Spheres or Folding Ideas or Nojave or anyone else, I'm like, they've got all these really cool things that they've done, and the next thing they do will be more of those things, and that's great, and I love it. And I look back at everything I've done, it's just this horrible mishmash of everything, and I'm not happy with any of it. It's like I've made nothing. It's like I've not ever actually done anything yet. I hate it.
That's called imposter syndrome, and you're wrong.
It's not real. Like, the Fallout 3 video is terrible. I hate all of it.
It was funny. Like, so a week and a half ago, I did a guest lecture at the university for a course on video essay as a rhetorical format. And prior to it, they're like, it's like, is there any videos that you want the class to have watched to, like, as a baseline? And I'm like, okay. So I go and I, like, look at my entire list of videos, like everything that I've ever made, and to try to decide, like, okay, what do I want to ask a class of students to watch? And I just sat there, I'm like, well, okay, so I've made at least 2 good videos in the last 9 years. So we'll make maybe I should pick a third of all of this garbage.
Oh my god, no.
And then it's like, you know. So it's like,
I can only think of 2 videos of yours that you shouldn't have made, and both of them are about Man of Steel. No.
Actually, one of the videos that I probably shouldn't have made is about Man of Steel, because it's just a, like, 40-minute, barely coherent vlog where I put on a ridiculously stupid After Effects effect that cuts out about halfway through because it was crashing my computer, so I didn't notice that one of the keyframes had like failed.
Oh,
and so I'm like, I don't know if I even re-uploaded it. I don't know if it's on my page. If it is on my page, like, I have a copy of it, but if it is on my, someone go look and see if my Man of Steel, or if my Clark, like, I think it's called, like, Clark Kent follow-up or something like that. Someone tell me if that's public, and if it is, I'll go, like, delete it right now.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
It's not public? Okay, good. It shouldn't be.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it was not good.
Okay, I have a bunch of weird stuff on my channel that I'm glad is, like, unlisted or gone. I made a bunch of, like, just weird art films / just comedy nightmares that were just not actually very funny. They were just me being stupid, like cutting my teeth with a video camcorder when I was an early teenager.
I've probably made 100 bad videos. I mean, like,
Maybe
I don't know. I feel like I don't much like my output. I don't know. I feel like I feel like I have more subscribers than I deserve and all that kind of thing. I mean, I think about that all the time.
I'm starting to wish I'd finished the Deus Ex video, because I think, oh, that one was promising, and I stopped. Oh no. There's one good joke in it where I pretend that the entire thing is all done as, like, research, so that Square Enix know how to revive their other best property, Gex. That's it. That's the one joke. The rest of it is just nonsense.
I'm sure it's incredible, and it would make me feel ill at how good it was.
The only 2 you have are The People versus Clark Kent and Man of Steel redo. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because The People versus Clark Kent is sort of about Man of Steel, but it's ultimately about superhero movies and the framing of them, and particularly my increasing dissatisfaction with, like, just the mindless destruction of cities as visual shorthand. And then Man of Steel redo is actually about Man of Steel, and I think it's really good. And I watched it a while ago and was like, wow, I was really, really, like, fair and optimistic and, like, kind to this movie that it's a little weird now I get called, it's like Marvel fanboy. It's like, you just hate the DC movies out of hand. It's like, that it's some irrational hatred of Zack Snyder. I'm like, well, okay, go back and rewatch my 300 review, and I'm actually like, I still kind of really like that. I like that movie less now than I did when I made that video, but I still kind of like 300 still, sort of. And like Man of Steel, I desperately wanted Man of Steel to be the movie that Man of Steel wanted to be.
Yeah.
Same.
I like your Crank 2 video.
Oh man, that Crank 2 video was just fun. Like, that was just a lot of fun to actually take something and be like, okay, this is possibly the smartest, stupid movie you will ever see. It's also like horrifically offensive and shamelessly so, and is probably actually unironically bad. But there's nothing else on the planet like it.
Have you seen Mom and Dad yet?
I haven't.
See it. It's a film you should see.
It's a film. The Shrooms one was kind of fun. I think the gimmick on that one, the voice modulator gets old a little fast. That's one that I would, I don't know, maybe redo if anyone actually cared about shrooms.
Well, like things like that. I mean, that like awareness of like what you probably wouldn't do now, I think shows a strength. It's like look how far you've come kind of thing. I try to keep myself on that because I pretty much acknowledge that imposter syndrome just lives in my brain now, and so like every time I make something, I'm like, this is gonna be the one that ruins everything,
Same.
And then but also like that's like the best way to do stuff though.
I reverberate between I'm gonna just do this. I know there's mistakes here, but I will put them out and then I'll learn from them later. Fine, I'll make this. It's time to make mistakes. This has to be done. And like sitting on something I've done for a long time, as if I can get retrospect on it before anyone else sees it, and then I can like basically do it again already. Like I'm building that into the process, which means everything I do takes like twice as long. So it's been a horrible mistake, but I'm pretty proud of what I've ended up making to a certain extent. Like it's the best I could have done at the time.
All right, this is it. This is the video where everybody realizes you're a fraud, Dan, and they all unsubscribe at the same time.
What's shocking is I made that video. I made a defense of Dark Souls 2, and a bunch of people did realize I was a fraud, but it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
That was the shocking thing. I got away with it.
I did the same thing with the Medea films.
It was so terrible. Someone made a 9-hour video response.
Oh man,
that is amazing.
That
like
he keeps messaging me. He keeps messaging me.
Does he?
Every couple of months he comes back and he's just like sends me another like either open Twitter message or a DM and is just like, hey, do you want to talk about Dark Souls 2 yet?
Can you imagine wanting to talk about Dark Souls 2 still like that much?
Like he just wants desperately to convince me that Dark Souls 2 is awful.
I feel like he doesn't understand my criticisms. Like he makes valid ones in some places, and others he like says things that I agree with as if there were counterpoints, and he just like doesn't understand the idea of experiences being subjective.
Right.
Yes, games are an objective arrangement of mechanics in like an exe file, but you experience them in an order and in a way that is important.
Right.
There's a reason why you don't just have a book of all the best art in the world on your table. It's like you go out to see it for a reason.
And I still really want to make my own Dark Souls 2 video just to hit on, like, just to laser in on a point that you kind of you brushed across in yours, but it wasn't the point of yours. So a lot of my overlap videos come from that. Like I'll watch someone who does like a really good essay, but then there's one point that's like a pet subject for me, and it's like, oh, they didn't talk about that one thing, that one very specific thing as much as I wanted them to. So now I'm gonna make my own like 20-minute thing just talking about that one specific subject.
That's
And
cool.
it's the success slash failure of the integrated world in Dark Souls 2,
Yeah.
or the not integrated world, that how a technical limitation, or just sort of like the process. So they were going for they were going to go back to the demon style disconnected world, but people loved the connected world of Dark Souls 1 so much that basically became a mandate. You need to have a single unified, space. And then in merging those two conflicting things together, they wound up creating meaning out of it. That it became an extension of the chosen undead. Or wait, no, what's the character in second? Is it the chosen undead?
The bearer of the curse.
The
I
bearer of the
think.
curse, right? It's it becomes a reflection of the bearer of the curse's mental state. That the
Yeah.
witches at the beginning say, like they talk about how it's like, oh, you don't even remember getting here, do you? And
Yeah,
so then
and
that,
like there's that opening cutscene of everyone
yeah,
of like their memories melting away, and then you live in a world where you get to the top of a tall tower
and
and
don't
go
remember
up
how you
into
got there.
hell. Like, it's great.
That it's like you left one space and now you're at another, so that those transitions, those physically impossible transitions, are metaphor for the blank memories in between those spaces. Because then when you finally do get into the locked mansion in the hub town and you find the map, it's like, okay, here's an actual map of all of the places that you've been to, and they're scattered, like they're on opposite sides of this small continent. And it's like, okay, clearly the game world is not supposed to be a one-to-one representation in the same way that it is in the same way that Firelink Shrine is.
Yeah.
And now, and then go deeper into it. It's like, okay, now, so that's what they're doing. Does it work? Yes, no. Like, some people don't get it, but that's not necessarily a failure of the audience, because if the audience doesn't get it, then, well, maybe it wasn't communicated as well or
Yeah.
as clearly as it could have been.
But that still is what it's doing.
Yeah. It's still a
It's more
fascinating,
specific.
like, and address the idea of like a fascinating failure. That
Yeah.
like you can try something that's a really cool idea, but maybe it just doesn't play.
I found the segment of Mauler's response where he responds to me pointing that out, and he like uses freeze frames of me showing the map and the way it interconnects, and explains how beautiful and good it is that it's all one big world in Dark Souls 1, and it's bad because it's not like that in 2, and it has to be connected. That's just the only way it can be. Don't give me any of that artsy crap. It's just, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, and
Why am I doing any of that?
this is something I've talked about a lot on stream before. Whenever Dark Souls 1 comes up, is that I actually got turned off by Dark Souls 1's world when I first played it. Like, so I picked it up at release, and around Capra Demon, I got so interminably lost that
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out where I was going. If I ever wound up putting the game down for more than like a day, it would take me like an hour just to figure out where I had been, and it was getting really frustrating. And it was like, I have work and a life and a job, and I can't just do this. Like, this isn't like Dark Souls or this isn't like Demon Souls. Like, Demon Souls was, its linearity meant that I could play it over like in bursts, in like long sort of like I could play it in marathon sessions on the weekends and have an idea of where I was, because I only had to focus on like one world at a time. And Dark Souls was just like kind of like this incomprehensible rat's nest, which is both a strength and a failing. The cognitive load on the player in order to figure out the world in the first place is super high. Now, there's things that they can do in Dark Souls 1, there's things that they can evoke with that are only possible at if you ask that of the player, but it's like, is this a thing that you should ask every single time? Maybe not, because like it is a barrier.
Yeah.
This is something I touch on in the video I made about ukulele, where there are many, many ways to use space in video games, and some of the ones that we used in early games have been forgotten in service to, like, oh, we'll just build a really big world. We'll build a big open world, done. Where in early games, if you went into a building, it would load, and the building would be bigger on the inside because the building was more fun if it had more stuff in it. You know, the pyramid in Mario is a whole big pyramid. With more stuff in it. Didn't make any sense. Completely incohesive if you thought about it. If you built a map of the world, Mario 64, one of the best games ever, completely fails Mauler's test. As does Legend of Zelda, almost every Zelda game. Breath of the Wild has these little tiny huts, and you get inside, and it's an entire giant temple that's built to be the test it wants to be, completely irrespective of how it impacts on the feel of the world. And that's something that's good to have, and the kind of reliance on building cohesive space can hamstring that unless it's like doing what it's doing very well to make up for it. This concludes my rant. But also just really simple things. I love shortcuts. I love, you go in this hole and you come out near the place you want to go. You don't have to run all the way back or take a kind of little shortcut.
Oh, people are talking.
It's not that much.
Chat said they're looking forward to my defense of Vaughn from Final Fantasy 12.
Oh no.
Okay, so here's, like, it's not necessarily a defense of Vaughn as a character, though I will say that in replaying or in playing Zodiac Age, like in the re-release, he's a lot less obnoxious than we maybe remember him mimetically. There is a lot more to the character than we give credit, but at the same time, like, it is undeniable that he's not the main character, and really his actual like plot and character arc is resolved about a third of the way into the game, and then he just kind of is there for the rest. Those are just observable things about the story, but at the same time, I don't think Vaughn not being the main character is as bad as people make it out to be. That I want to, like, that it's like, okay, something video games don't really do is experiment with different narrative structures in the way that, like, books do. That we don't really have a lot of video games where it's like, okay, the protagonist is really there as an observer narrator. You look at something like, and the comparison that I make is Moby Dick, that it's like Ishmael is the narrator and, main character of Moby Dick, but he's not who the story's about. Like, that the story is about Ahab and Queequeg far more than it's about Ishmael. Ishmael is there as an observer, even though he's the point of view character. And so this idea of, like, hey, a video game where it's like the character you play is there to observe things happening and participate in them, but is not the focal point of them, is, I think, not an invalid thing for a video game to try to do. And that maybe if Final Fantasy 12 had embraced that a little bit more aggressively, like if they had gone in planning that instead of Vaughn being, this sort of corporate mandated addition, that it's like, oh, well, main characters you got to have some teens in there. If it hadn't been that situation, then, maybe they would have thought about that and just integrated it a little bit more tightly to the way that the narrative actually then ends up working out. So that's the short version of my defense of Vaughn in Final Fantasy 12.
I wish I had something really intense to defend.
Yeah, but I brought up ukulele and all that stuff, but basically I can't wait to see how you phrase that stuff, because you'll phrase it better than me. So, as I said, I hate all my videos. Clown Unionist, which is a great name, asks, Have you ever deliberately advanced a controversial opinion, one you didn't quite agree with, just for the fun of it? I think they're asking. Yeah, they're asking me specifically. No, but I mean, I've advanced opinions that I no longer hold, that I held
Yeah.
at the time. I've definitely advanced opinions that I hold about something, but which are using like an approach that I know the other people in the conversation aren't holding, and doesn't really cohere with the conversation. That was silly, but
I mean,
that's also different.
I guess maybe like I don't think outside of like I don't think beyond an intro. Like I'll do it in an intro. Like I'll make the first 30 seconds of a video clickbaity. Sure, why not? You know, it's an intro. I can then immediately like walk, and I've done this a number of times where it's like, oh, it's like say something sensational, and then immediately walk it back 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
If I can't do another something is garbage and here's why without immediately stepping back from that with like, well, actually, you know, this is the title of this is how I title my videos, but actually, come on, this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
What a unfortunate mistake I made.
I think that speaks to something though. Like I think walking things back like that is kind of necessary, like to draw people out of their previous perceptions.
Yeah, like you need to like to get on in this world and like reach people in the first place. You have to channel like basically clickbait, while also not using it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also from a like pedagogical standpoint, it's not even necessarily invalid to say something extreme specifically to force the audience to shift their frame a lot further than they necessarily would, because it's like, okay, it's like, well, I'm going to make a very subtle point about, you know, narratology, and people are going to be like, okay, they're going to think it's like, all right, well, this is just sort of a light shift on what I already think about the subject. And it's like, no, I'm trying to make a you know, legitimately like kind of radical statement about it.
Right.
And you're not getting it because you're assuming it's like the status quo, but red now it, you know, new, all improved, now comes in red. Malibu Stacy has a new hat, you know, that is like that kind, like that level of sort of an alteration on the status quo. And it's like, no, I really need to impress upon you. So like in my Marshall McLuhan episode, or not Marshall, I guess it wasn't Marshall McLuhan, well, it wasn't, on the medium is the message, that it's like a lot of that was focused on highlighting how that statement, like that theory, is still radical today because of how it continues to apply to new forms of media that arise.
Yeah. I like McLuhan. I wanted to to say this too is like, I think that your Suicide Squad video like speaks to something that, see, it's kind of like, so earlier on, you know, we were talking and I was saying that thing about how there's like this negative, like, you know, human experience thing. The thing is that the Suicide Squad doesn't do that, because the Suicide Squad walks that idea back and challenges it by virtue of being a better criticism and critical framework than most of the critical stuff we're seeing. It's like tangible. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's complaining, but nobody knows why they're complaining, and nobody knows how to complain. And so it's like,
you're right that this is bad, but you're right for the wrong reasons.
Right. Yes. And like the reason that video hit, like, I know, I mean, because there was a million Suicide Squad videos, and all of them said the same thing. The movie is very bad. And most of it was like people complaining about nonsense and costuming and acting and stuff they honestly didn't know anything about anyway. And then, you know, I see your video in my recommended and I'm like, what's this? Click on it, and suddenly it's like, oh look, actual like tangible reasons as to why this affected people in a way that didn't work for them. That is a radical shift, and I think that radical shift, for me, I think its impact is something we're still seeing. I think that video actually really impacted YouTube. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm over assuming its influence, but I think that video impacted YouTube because now I notice that a lot of people
have to explain why something is bad.
yeah. I mean, it just feels like after that, every time somebody's like, this movie is objectively bad, and then they don't talk about even remotely what that could possibly mean, they failed. At that point, it's like they've proven to me that they don't actually have the know-how that they authoritatively spout that they have. And it's like a challenging statement of authority. Because we're just so used to this authoritative dude on the internet hates this thing,
Though
Now you have to explain why something is bad.
Yeah.
Though some
And moreover
days I
that,
do
like-
just kind of think like, I could just get a bookshelf and fill it with, Far Cry Special Edition mannequins and all of the Assassin's Creed garbage and just grow my hair really long and yell really, really loud about video game feminism every single week.
Yeah.
And just
that's part of the
just
perfect storm.
clutch my Assassin's Creed collector's Connor statuette where he has his assassin branded tomahawk and is assassinating a Templar redcoat, and just clutch it to my chest and say, it's okay, Connor, they'll never come for you even though your game was bad.
Wow. I think something else is, there was something to the sort of what became the standard Tig style of, like, you show the footage from the thing and then you react to it and you maybe make a quip.
Yeah,
and
the
that's
watch and riff
there was something
format.
to it. And the something has become, I think, more refined now. It's found pride of place alongside the meaningful criticism. Like, honestly, I think I'm so bad. The Hunchback of Notre Dame video that Lindsay did is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much like historical analysis in there. There's so much like talking about the importance of architecture and like the way the book was written, and to like in it to then repeatedly use the "I'm losing to a bird" line. Like that's it. Like that's beautiful. It's incredible. Like. I'm the kind of person who will see something and go, "That's amazing! I have to make notes on this. This is so well constructed." Like,
Yeah.
it's really clever, and it's like that's the thing that worked about like Nostalgia Chick even, but worked to this like mirror shine where it's also like saying something about history.
Yeah, well, and this
thing.
actually,
Incredible.
how I sort of got into even doing this garbage in the first place, how I went and ruined my life by putting myself on YouTube, is
Can that be the title of your Toa book? How I went to
how I went and ruined my.
Most fucking
Is it
accurate
so?
thing I've ever
So
heard.
I was watching like a lot of Tig in like 2009, 2010. Like it was great, just kind of like background material at work. You could put it on a second video. There was like tons of backlog. Like so when I kind of found it, like it had already been going for a while, so like there was a ton of backlog, so I could just kind of constantly have videos going. So I was binging it, and it was like good kind of background filler. But then I started to get dissatisfied, and this is sort of what you were alluding to earlier, is that it's like if there is no content, you can watch. Like if there is no actual content, if there's no meat to it, then you can watch it endlessly because it's always the same, and you'll never get full. And that I sort of started to realize, like, that hollowness did sort of start to set in, and particularly what made it set in was that, like, Lindsay and Kyle Calgren, so, Nostalgia Chick and Browse Held High, which is what both their shows were called at the time, though Kyle still uses brows held high, so I don't know why I'm saying it like past tense. Is that like they would have these moments in their videos that were like clearly far more like cogent than anything else on the site. And it was clear that it's like, oh, they know about this stuff. You know, it's like Kyle really truly knows a lot about Shakespeare and a lot about classical theater. And that would come through, and then he would immediately turn it around into a gag about, you know, about the fact that he knows stuff. Like, he would pander to this audience that finds, you know, academia to be distasteful. And it really frustrated me because he would get these points and I'd be like, oh, that's really good. And then he would stop it for a gag that specifically hinged on knowing things are dumb. And I'm like, no, that was the best part. You were headed towards the best part of your video. Like, that was going to be the really good part. Like, that is the best part. And then you just sort of stopped. And there was this very much like anti-intellectual culture, this strain of anti-intellectualism in a lot of that early Tigwatig stuff that frustrated me. That no one on the site was going, hey, here's this fun, stupid, bad movie. How did it get that way? Because there's, you know, having worked on just like god-awful movies in the past, I'm sitting there like, oh man, I really wish someone on this site would mention, like, that would even just say budget constraints out loud, or would, you know, that, like, how movies end up being awful is usually like really funny and interesting.
Yeah.
Because it takes a like really strange alchemy of just like, you know, ego and mistakes and limitations and overreach to well and truly make a memorably awful movie. And I'm like, you know, even if your audience is like, your audience will like this. You just need to know what you're talking about. If you can sell them on it, like, these are funny stories. You just need to be able to tell it properly. And so I started sending messages to Kyle and Liz. Like, at first it was like, just be really supportive. Like, that if they make a really good point, just mention like, oh man, I really liked when you started talking about, you know, the relationship between, oh dang it, who wrote Faustus? Why am I forgetting the author, the playwright's name?
I'm forgetting his name as well. That's like literally my favorite play. How do I not know this right now?
But that it's like, oh, when you started talking about
Goethe.
yeah, so when
That's Faustus.
no
Faustus is Christopher Marlowe. That's it.
Marlowe. It's like when you started talking about like Shakespeare's relationship with Marlowe, like, I really liked that. Like, that was really cool. You should talk about that more. You know, just encourage. Like, so I started off just like really trying to encourage the people to go into more depth. That it's like, hey, you know, just like let people know that there's demand for that. It's like, hey, I wish you would talk about that more. That was really cool. I want to know more about that. And then I also decided, like, hey, why don't I just take this into my own hands and make the thing that I want to see exist?
Yeah, that's a really good point to it. It's funny how, thanks to Insomnia, I have watched, and by watched I mean had on while I did something else, every episode of A Top of the Fourth Wall. At some, like, up until a certain year, I've seen all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how, like, based on what moments I would go, hang on, he's onto something now, and I'd stop and go and like watch it properly. And those are the bits that stuck out.
Yeah, and though, like, I try to encourage Lewis as well, like, because he knows a lot about, you know, comics history. Like, he is a repository of knowledge on the subject, and so I do try to encourage him that it's like, hey man, like, have more confidence in that as subject matter more than just the gags. That it's like, you can fill an episode. Like, you don't need to necessarily even hit every single page of the comic if you can, like, you know, it just, if there's not a gag on every page but there's something to say, then
it's great, yeah.
just say that thing. And the funny thing
not-
is we had a long conversation once, him and I, about his whole relationship with A Brand New Day, and how it's like I'm never gonna do A Brand New Day because, like, basically it was because there isn't a whole lot of jokes you can make about it. But then he has this one rant about it. I'm like, your rant is an entire video about Brand New Day. And he's like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, you really should at some point just turn that into a standalone thing. And I think he has at this point. Like, he's gone back and revisited and actually done it, like, in full. But yeah, so it's like,
Well, it's one of those things where you could even turn it into a piece of content that's about the absence of the content. Like James Rolfe did here's why I'm not going to review Ghostbusters 3, and he essentially reviewed Ghostbusters 3. You know, it not what I want, me no like.
Yeah.
And so you could do that. So if he could, I mean, he might have done it, but then Kara could do a why I will not review One More Day.
Yeah, he actually sort of did. Like, it wound up being a so there's a 2-part video that's basically 10 comics I'll never review, and then the longest chunk of it is One More Day, where I'm like, okay, he did kind of stealth it in there, and I think he's gone back and actually done a dedicated thing that continues, because it is that sort of stealth way of, like, you know, it's like, oh, I'll never review this, but then the why I'll never review it is in essence the review of it.
Yeah, either because the person's regular review would be, you know, would be just as contentless anyway, so it's their equivalent, or because the reason why is really interesting to read.
Yeah.
And a creator who I have to give more props to is Super Eye Patch Wolf, who does anime and manga stuff.
Yeah,
Eye Patch Wolf is on point so much. They did a piece on the Junji Ito collection, sort of explaining why it's a bad adaptation, and they're so good at just explaining why a shot or a panel don't or do work incredibly well. And like, there's a fantastic segment where they just show. Did my internet just break? No. They just show a frame from one of the episodes. I'm like, I was like, I don't see what they're saying. This looks fine. It's, you know, it's a scary face. That's it. And then they fade in the version from the manga, and you go, oh wow, they ruined this. Like, it's really cleverly put together.
Wow. I need to see these.
Yeah. Eye Patch Wolf is
Sean
great.
was telling me about Super Eye Patch Wolf the other day.
I should watch that one, because I really like Junji Ito, and 2, every adaptation that I've run into, I haven't watched the new, I haven't seen anything of this new Junji Ito collection, but every previous adaptation I've seen has been awful, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one continues that, you know, long trend.
Cool. I just got a copy of the short mangas of Satoshi Kon today, so I need to read more of Junji Ito there.
Uzumaki is
one
one of my, like, all-time favorite just pieces of media.
Are the Junji Ito?
No,
bits?
Uzumaki, the whole
Uzumaki's great.
is just
The
Body
thing
horror
is,
really gets to me. I still can't finish Hellraiser 2, and I've tried so many times.
really, wow.
Yeah, it just gets me. Like, when everything they touch, there's blood on it. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I get that. I mean, it's awful.
Like, I have to not think too hard when I'm playing Super Meat Boy, because I get like flashbacks.
Film
my
Skeptic asks, how do you find time for all of this? I'm old.
When I was reading Uzumaki, there was somebody on Twitter, because I was like tweeting about it, because I was really super affected by it. I thought it was really good. Beyond, you know, the obvious, there's scary faces. Yeah, I thought the narrative was really good.
Yeah.
And I was talking about that, and people kept talking about how the ending sucked. The ending sucks. The ending sucks. I get to the ending, and I'm like, it's fucking perfect. Like, I don't understand. So I don't know why people dislike the ending of that.
I think also that's in a way negative hype can be helpful to people coming with it with fresh eyes. Like, a lot of people overhype how bad something is, and then when you get to it and it's not that bad, it seems much better, and you go, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the thing I don't get, like I agree with you, May, that the ending of Uzumaki is what makes it. Like that it's really good, but if the ending of it, the very specific ending that it has is like what like seals it, is what elevates it from just being a really good horror story to being a enduring classic.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got to read it. Oh wow.
And in fact, so like whenever I get talking about it, it's like, well, the middle is a bit of a lull, but he sticks the landing so well that even the stuff in the middle comes back in a important way. So it's like you can't just, it's like, oh, well, so I should just skip like the middle 3 issues. And it's like, no. You still need to read them because even if they're kind of weak on their own, they are critical to the whole.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Wow.
Which actually, I think, that part speaks to how, like, flawed things are good and valuable. Like, the flaws in things are good and valuable. That's another thing. I can't keep beating this drum. But, like, the modern criticism thing, contemporary, I guess modern is loaded. But, it's just treat everything like it's valuable when you get something out of it. But, like, I don't know. I think that middle chunk is there's a certain kind of weird magic going on there where it's like it presents something to you and you feel like you've just seen the same thing more than once in Uzumaki. I mean in a different kind of iteration, but then you get to the end and it feels like those things exist independently and are kind of micro themes, even though they feel at the time like they're just saying the same thing. I don't know. That's weird. I would like to hear your take, Harry, when you read it.
I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, largely I just feel like it's not even that the middle is bad. It's just like weak. No, that's wrong. Like when you're reading it the first time, it feels a little repetitive. Like it's like, okay, it's just variants on a theme now. And the funny thing is, if you read the like complete edition, like the collected, where that includes all of Ito's translated in between notes, he basically straight up admits that it's like, I feel like I've been spinning my wheels and I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, and it's just this comic is just repeating itself now, and I really need to figure out how it's going to end.
Wow. Well, and like when he does, there's distinct moments in the third of the thing where you start to realize that he's coming together with the whole thing. It's kind of like, I feel that way when I create things where I feel like, oh, I'm just saying the same thing I said last video, or I'm just saying the same thing that I've said over here, or I'm doing the same thing. And then you get to this place where you go, no, I'm transcending it in a certain way, but it's good to have that awareness. I don't know. I think that because I read it with the liner notes too, the like ending notes. When he brings those things up, you're like, it's kind of this confounding thing where you're like, is this gonna go somewhere? But I think there is that like distinct moment where it just shifts and you go, oh, he's a genius. Like, oh, I get it. I don't know. It's weird because it's so tangible in that ending.
I have a feeling that the ending is going to be one of those really good endings that is just thoroughly misunderstood by people who like the horror stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
I hate when that happens.
Exactly. They're like, why didn't it have a scary ending?
Oh.
And instead it's an ending that is like just deeply unsettling and horrifying. It's horrifying rather than scary.
Yeah, he ditches the aesthetic for the core of the thing. Like he gets back to the core of like what he has been doing here and why he's been doing it, and that's the haunting way he leaves you. It's really good. It's really good, Harry. You need to read it.
I've got to read it. Thank you both very much. That's really good. The thing that like really stuck out is someone really oversold how bad the ending was going to be. So when it came around, it was okay. It was Gankutsuo, an anime adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo. That's really good and really kind of beautiful art-wise. They do a lot of kind of interesting aesthetic decisions, and the ending is it takes quite a lot of liberties, even more so than the rest of the story, which is Count of Monte Cristo in space. And it's not that bad. It's just a bit underwhelming. And I'm so glad that everyone had told me it was terrible, because it would have been a lot worse if I'd gone in expecting it to be as good as the rest of the show.
I think that's good. That is gonna be my shtick for the next little while. Is this thing is not bad. It's just kind of underwhelming and mediocre.
Yeah.
Hashtag 50 Shades. Frick.
See, I was gonna ask you about that because, like, so I saw I've only seen the last 50 Shades movie.
Oh, you've only seen? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just skipped straight to the end. I didn't see the other ones. I had no interest in seeing them. And then one day we were just like, let's see what this is about. And the last one, while not perfect,
It's like
it feels like it's a movie that actually ties together a lot of the things that I thought were maybe going on there, but because those things were not demonstrated to me, like I didn't see the abusive relationship stuff.
So
like that's that's only kind of in the last one.
The abusive relationship stuff has been largely the filmmakers have done a pretty good job like removing it. And like
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, in the book, like a lot of this comes down just to like acting. So in the book, Christian Grey is like constantly like screaming at people, like yelling, stomping around, like on the sort of behavior that if they had put it on screen, it'd be like this guy is on the verge of like hitting someone. Like the book Christian Grey is a total rage monster. And so simply by removing a lot of that, and they've removed a lot of like the smaller sort of control things that he does, to like isolate Anna, and also they've recontextualized, how Anna responds to stuff. Okay. Because it's like, okay, if your boyfriend's kind of an ass, but it doesn't bother you, is it an abusive relationship? Like, if he's just a dick, then it's like, well, no, you're just kind of an awful person who's dating another awful person.
Right, which softens it, but kind of in a shitty way.
Kind of in a it's like, it's not perfect. Like, it's still got some, like, really just, like, garbage messages. But it's like, all right, it's not, is it any worse than your average, James Bond movie?
Yeah.
And should it be criticized, for the things that it does include? Yes. Has the criticism been disproportionate due to other things about it? That's sort of so like the movies
that's really good.
So the movies have softened sort of a lot of the worst aspects of the book, so the end product is that the movies are just kind of mediocre movies that are sort of they're kind of approaching like some dumb fun. The third one is really, the third one in a lot of ways is like a really, really low budget James Bond knockoff.
Yeah.
It's all like, it's like, oh, expensive cars and expensive places, and we're going hopping around Europe. We're going hopping around Europe for the first 20 minutes and then it's home. There's spy business and intrigue. Someone breaks into headquarters and blows up the servers off screen.
Yeah, it's got those like cheese genre things in there every now and then, and like I laughed a lot.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel evil quite like I was led to believe by all the like constant kind of criticisms. I mean, like when you think 50 Shades, everybody talks about how it's just, this like vile sex thing, and it's like, it's just, I don't know. In the movies, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Come
the
across
books
that way.
are way more problematic.
Oh no. I still can't even use that phrase sarcastically. I feel like it's been too badly damaged.
We're gonna, and that's the next joke that we're all just gonna lift from each other. We're gonna take that one from Natalie. We're all just gonna say problematic, really slowly and like distorted.
I'm okay.
I'm
with
going to try and not steal that. That's gonna be the one joke I don't steal.
I'm more about stealing people's ideas and not their jokes.
Yeah. I have terrible jokes of my own to use. Not to imply that there are some like terms that I don't use on purpose because I know that they're loaded with meaning that to so many people is like unnecessary.
Yeah.
Basically, when people say problematic or toxic masculinity, they turn their brains off, and I want to keep that. I just can't bring myself to. I don't have enough time to argue in their defense, so I just have sadly
Yeah.
abandoned those words. And it's one of those many things you have to like accept defeat in.
Yeah, and I feel like I've
so-
had to explain that to people, and
Yeah.
it's been like just like a frustrating fucking nightmare when
Yeah.
when it's so much easier to just be like, you're being a dick, here's how you're being a dick. I don't know, it's just I mean I feel like it's a very tangible kind of a dick, and it's a systemic kind of a dick, but it also is like, when you're talking to people, they will not hear it in those terms, which is it's fucked up.
Yeah. It sucks, and maybe it's something that I shouldn't bother with because, like, if you're explaining it to them anyway, even if you're not using those terms, they probably won't listen. But
Yeah.
no, I feel like sometimes you have to try. It's like when you see, when people replace trigger warning with content warning on a post or something. It's like they shouldn't have to do that. The
Yeah.
word's fine, it makes sense, but but they've just rolled over and go, oh well, this isn't worth it. I can see that.
I was at a bookstore, and I was like waiting on somebody to meet me there, and they had a copy of a John Waters like graduation like commencement speech in a book form, and I was like, I'll read this while I wait. And as I was reading it, there's a part in it where John Waters was like, I'm going to include a trigger warning, but I have disdain for that because it's just like when people give you a challenging idea, and you don't want to hear a challenging idea, and it's like, what the fuck, John Waters? Like, has it spread that far?
I mean, at the same time, like, actually, I mean, kind of here's a throwback to your stream earlier that, I think in that regard, John Waters is a bit in a Zizek sort of point where it's like, dude's old.
Right.
Yeah. It's too late. Yeah. It's like let's say that whoever runs William Shatner's Twitter account, whatever like degenerate loser who runs it, is somehow William Shatner. William Shatner's old. Everyone thought he was gonna die 20 years ago. He's allowed at this point. Just let him. Just look the other way.
Yeah. Apparently William Shatner likes death grips.
Yeah, death grips and what else? Like the Joe Rogan podcast or something.
Oh my god. Apparently he's unfortunate.
Yeah, he's on. Yeah, he's a big fan of Paul and M.
God.
I don't know.
God.
I'm sure William Shatner's busy trying to get the shit my dad says back on the air.
Now I'm just thinking about like the fact that Billy Corgan has been on has been on InfoWars like so many times at this point.
Oh my god, that has been like one of the strangest fucking things in the last few months that I've seen. I'm not shocked, but it's hilarious, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's still kind of just like, I don't know, weird, because it's like, all right, Billy Corgan at his creative prime was in a lot of ways the opposite of that, but I think it's a situation where he's just become fixated on stuff like, you know, the absurd conspiracy theory garbage, like lizard people and whatnot, and he doesn't realize, appreciate, or care about literally everything else that uh, InfoWars dude, Rage Monster, Alex Jones says.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like it's almost like he goes on InfoWars and doesn't realize that it's not actually a podcast about Morlocks.
Oh God. So, I saw someone mention Steven Crowder in the chat, and I have a funny story about him. Two funny stories, actually. I guess they go together. So Steven Crowder he showed up randomly at Texas Christian University, which is down the street from me. And he set up a table, and he put that sign that said, you know,
Changed my
changed
mind.
my mind. And he took a picture, and the picture became the meme. That happened down the street from me.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
No shit. And here's where the story gets really good. So I had a metaphysics philosophy professor at the university that I am currently completing, and he is a genius. He's like this he's this weird guy. He's really isolated, but he's a madman, but he's a genius kind of thing. Anyway, he got in really big trouble last year for going up to I'm not kidding, the alt-right group on campus, which they did allow to be there, and he led a chant of like 20 other people screaming that they were Nazis, and he got in really big trouble. Well, he got in trouble again because he went to Steven Crowder's thing. Now, I don't know if this was at the place where the meme happened or not, but it might have been. I'd like to think it was. And he also led a group of people calling him a Nazi. So my metaphysics professor is currently like maybe gonna get suspended or something for having called Crowder a Nazi, which is amazing.
While he was sitting alone at his booth. While he was sitting alone at his, marital advice booth. Advice booth.
Oh my god. But yeah, isn't that the like, we found out about that the day it was happening, and we debated going down there to Steven Crowder's little booth. But we didn't. And then became a meme.
God, if I could make so many easy target, simple, swing in a slam dunk, home run videos. Just pick a thing Steven Crowder said this week.
Oh man. Louder with Scrouder.
I did for a while document every single time Crowder tweeted the wow, what a shock! Hitler said this socialist thing, but I lost count at 26. Just the same thing, every time. God. I just bought a bunch of the black editions of Death Note on eBay so I can have the copies of the books physically.
Oh no, I wasn't paying attention and I accidentally recruited a snorer. All right, I need to go give them a bed away from everyone else.
Sorry, Spiny King just came up with the best name for the thing, Bokum with scrotum.
No, that was
I'd have gone Hokum with
mine was Lodum with scrotum.
Lodum with no. Okay.
That his family name was originally Crotum. It was a very, very half-formed joke about how his original family name was Crotum, and but his first show, Lodum with Scrotum, didn't really get off the ground, so he changed it to louder with Scrouter.
Jesus.
That's very good.
It's a very funny idea, but it's hard. Like, it just needs to be worked into like the perfect delivery.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um.
Get back to me on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. So, H-Bomb, are you gonna follow through on that Death Note video? I mean, I know you are, but I mean, soon.
Eventually, I don't know. It's one of those ones where, in my head, it's one of those things where I'll do a bunch of work on it before I release it. Like, before I have made it, I want to be happy with the amount of research I've done, and I feel like I'm still a long way off doing that. But I felt that way for ages. So I'm gonna just reread the manga for the first time in ages and see if the notes I've made hold up, and then we'll go from there.
Cool.
I'm trying to rely on stick to it so it doesn't ramble or go on for a year.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I succeeded at my one and only goal for this, which was make enough food that people don't die.
Nice, yeah. Speaking of which, it is 4:55 a.m. My nap that I had late in the afternoon has sustained me, but I should go to bed. Thank you all. And it's been fun just jumping into your stream completely, like, unannounced even. Like, you didn't even invite me. Like, wow.
Well, I mean, I sort of did. I mean,
You gave me kind of like an open invitation.
Oh yeah.
But
all right.
Well,
I'm actually going to I'm gonna wrap the stream up anyway,
Cool.
because this was a fun. What hour? How long have we been going? What does the thing
it's like
say?
an hour.
Live for 3 hours almost, 2:48.
Oh my God.
wow.
So
Flew by.
So that's a good time. This is a good time to wrap it up. So I'm gonna save, overwrite the chaotic space hut, and where can people find you? Plug something. Promote yourselves. Naked self promotion time.
Go first, H-Bomb.
You can find Malmrose projects by googling Malmrose projects. Their videos are really good. Also check out Super Eye Patch Wolf and Nick Spheres this year as well.
Oh, hi. You should watch Shannon Strucy, and you should watch Skellyfish, and you should be watching Brooks streams on Twitch.
Cool. And
Also, I'm on Twitter.
you should watch H Bomber Guy and Nick Spheres. I hear they make good stuff, even if they, like me, hate literally everything they've ever made. So
Not just me.
it's not. It's all of us. Thanks for coming out. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy whatever. Just be good, and we'll see you later.
Bye.